This is how I transformed America's most iconic ballpark into a musical instrument. Hi, my name is Maria, and I'm an artist. I transform architecture into stages, venues into immersive experiences, and parks into sound adventures. In this video, I'll show you how I used physics to come up with the concept. I'll show you what tools we used, and why 30,000 people came out to see it. So with this type of work, everything starts with a site visit. I really need to get to know what the place looks like, feels like, and the history of the place. And luckily, Fenway Park is oozing with great history, with great passion, such excited fans. And I was specifically drawn to the history of the Green Monster, which is the left field wall, and one of the tallest walls still in any baseball stadium throughout the United States. As I was with the festival director of Illuminous, who made all of this happen, we were walking down the street next to the park, and there's these large beams that are in the shape of X's and kind of super tall. And all of a sudden I looked at it and I said, hey, one, this was built a long time ago, so all of these beams are made of steel. And two, I bet a lot of those are hollow. My brain as a percussionist, I have an understanding of physics in a way that I look at an object and I try to identify, does it resonate? Well, a large hollow beam made of steel is definitely gonna resonate. If it's versus, right? So something that's hollow, that kind of has space for a sound wave to move through, will actually resonate and sound just like a lot longer and more lush than something that is dense. So I asked the festival director, I said, hey Jeff, can I hit the stadium? And we walked over, I took my fist, boom, and the sound resonated all the way down Lansdowne Street. And I said, what if we turn this into a musical instrument? All right, so the seed of the idea was born. Yes, this structure can be a musical instrument. After that, I really had to step back and I had to make a lot of decisions. Okay, how many people are gonna play? Where? Who and what? So first was how many people. And when I stepped back and looked at the architecture, there were very clear kind of 9 bays. So I knew 9 was my number of performers that I wanted to work with. So then in the design process, I have to say, what are we gonna play? Yes, these steel beams make sound, but music is about organizing sound. So how are we gonna organize it? I was really inspired by Stomp when I was younger. So for me, I was like thinking back to these theatrical performances in which people are kind of hanging on buildings or hanging on stages and playing instruments. So I said, hey, can we do that here? Luckily, again, the answer was yes. I'm trained in Western classical composition, and so I started to use those skills and saying, all right, if I hit this beam, that is going to become a C4 in Western classical notation. If I hit this beam, it's going to be a D4, etc., etc. So now each person, each of those 9 performers, has something they're accustomed to seeing and feeling, which is a staff. So we could kind of take this abstract understanding of a musical instrument and translate it into something that musicians can understand and repeat and internalize. Then it became, well, what are we gonna play? I'm really attuned to this idea that I want community to be involved in all of my projects. I wanted the team to really reflect a lot of different perspectives on what is the Green Monster, what is Fenway Park, how can we kind of discover these hidden narratives. We ended up putting a call out and choosing 5 others, so 6 including myself, New England-based composers to write music. From then, they got to go crazy, and they did. And we really received 6 really individual pieces of music that were inspired by Fenway Park. Some were kind of very steampunk oriented, which I think was a reaction to the metallic register of what we were hearing and performing on. Some were very like electronic focused and very futuristic. Some were influenced by African beats and very like earthy and drummy spaces. I was personally inspired by numbers and thinking about how Fenway Park and how games work and how you're earning points and numbers of jerseys and just everything is based on numbers in sports. And so I really thought of how can we express numbers through music. So that meant I would have repeated patterns. And I also had the musicians vocalize numbers throughout the piece. So you would kind of hear 1, 7, 22, 5, do, 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 kind of all throughout the piece while you're hearing this super intricate rhythm. So now let's talk about the tools, both tactile and physical and also digital. At the site visit, I used my fist to activate the beams. However, that would get really exhausting for a whole night, and for 9 people, they would be screaming at me. So it was really important that we had the right tools, the right sticks, and the right hammers, actually, to make this happen. So, time to go to Home Depot. Boom. Rubber mallet. So I'm sure this is used for many practical things, but it can also be used to activate the beams at Fenway Park. Boom, a rubber hammer on a large metal hollow chamber sounds glorious. So the difference between a rubber hammer and a metal hammer is really, really important. When you're metal on metal, you're gonna get a very sharp, articulate, and kind of harsh sound. And we were gonna have plenty of that because we were only playing on metal. So it was important that I thought deeply about how can we have as many different timbres as possible with a very limited resource of material. So a rubber hammer allowed that metal to feel wide and not feel so harsh. So after my Home Depot run, it was time to create a partnership. I called my friends at Vic Firth and they were so stoked and so on board, and they sent us a bunch of different mallets to try out. And we ended up using kind of a really thick, wide, hard plastic and a really tiny metal head. This kind of created this harsh sound, but it was louder and more intense, where the tiny headed metal mallet created this like tinkly sound. So we had tinkly, we had harsh and intense, and we had soft and boomy. All right, so physically we had everything under control. We had the performers, the compositions, and the right tools to make the green monster sing. Now, let's go into the digital space. So I wanted this to be multidisciplinary. It was really important that you both felt and saw and heard all of these things. So we included a set of triggers, which are just tiny piezo triggers which vibrate when you strike something. The trigger vibrates and it sends a signal, boom, to a drum brain or kind of a machine that translates that signal into other energy. And so what we coded that energy to be was to then, boom, go to a computer that is projection mapping the structure itself. So Sam Åkerström Lang created a 3D model of this structure and then identified different animations on each of the beams. So we would strike a beam and then it would light up in different colors and with different animations based on the musical compositions. So creating work like this in a public space is so different from creating work behind closed doors. This is for the people that traverse these streets every day. This is for the people that go to games, that love the Red Sox, that hate the Red Sox. This is for the people that want to see their city transform. And it's so important, and it's really a big part of my practice to go from the sound side, but also to bring in the visuals, to bring in the storytelling, to bring in the feeling, because I want to create that memory, and to create that memory, we have to activate all of those senses. I feel really honored to have made it and excited to see what could be next. And if you found this project interesting, you'll love this video right here.